everybody, welcome back to Northernlion, place of Binding of Isaac Afterbirth, plus good randoms, good vibes only, please. This is gonna be forgotten. Like I said, hitting my head with that dumbbell. Oh, I'm so strong. Must have knocked something loose. It disrupted the mod. I was gonna say it disrupted the module that allows me to know what character we're gonna random. Instead, I said it disrupted the nodule, which I think in many ways is more along the lines of the spirit of what I was trying to say in the first place, if you don't mind. Alright. 5 wins deep. By the way, rest assured, I didn't mention in the last episode, I gotta do the It's the Key. Baba had a baby, it's a key. Absolutely, I will take this. We do still have to do rerun. Thought it might have worked there. I got close to rerun, but didn't actually fulfill my end of the bargain. This contract is sealed, etc., etc. Easy fight. Magic Mush, easy pick. Let's try to get a bomb, because a Tinted Rock would mean a lot for us. I feel like we've kind of, you know, we're like an underachieving high school student with a lot of potential right now. You know, we've been skating by, not having to do as much studying as the other kids, as a result of the fact that we just have a little bit of natural intelligence. And in Isaac terms, that natural intelligence comes from, you know, 3,500 hours of, you know, consistent gameplay. But nonetheless, we're 5 wins in. We just got a full ride scholarship to an Ivy League school. Now it's time to get our study habits in order. Because the pride of being naturally intelligent means nothing compared to a 4-year degree in classics from Brown University. I'm not going to tell you that Brown University in the year 2019 should change their name to avoid being made fun of. I would say probably that train has sailed. They had their chance. Please. I would love to get a bomb. Thank you. Now, don't hit me. Wait a minute. Was there a tinted? There might not have been a rock tinted available here to begin with. Place a bomb down here. When you see you a tinted rock, wanna get you a spirit heart, put a bomb down here. That's not how that should go. That's Supertramp, just so you know. In case you're not, it's called Music Sweetheart, look it up. That's what I meant to say. I've been saying that a lot lately. I'm starting to get called out on it. I like it because it's extremely condescending. And like most of my humor, I rely on the fact that it's so so condescending to serve as the signal that I, as a nice person, would never say anything like that in the first place. So that's the joke. He's being rude satirically. Good vibes only, by the way. Hey, I'm just, sorry, I watched Gotti earlier today. Hey, I'm just busting your balls, Johnny. I don't see what the... You might think that that's offensive. If you think that's offensive, go watch Jan Travolta's portrayal of Jan Gotti in the movie Gotti. I'm saying Gotti so much, it sounds like a nice Italian dessert. That's affogato. Affogato, whatever. Bro, have you seen all these fancy new coffee drinks? Sorry, this is just a 1996 comedy bit I'm trying out for myself here. We got an avocado, we got an affogato, we got a latte, a slatte, a cappuccino, a mochaccino, suck my chino. Okay, this, I don't even know where I'm going with this. Sometimes you just gotta pull at a few threads in an Isaac episode before you get something that sticks. By the way, you think that joke's bad? Yeah. Well, Adam Sandler based a whole movie around the concept of Al Pacino's Dunkachino. And, you know, that was only in, like, 2011. And he is much, much, much more successful than me. So how could he be wrong? Turns out my joke's actually funny. You owe me myriad laughs. Curse of the Labyrinth. Coffee is interesting, though. We were talking about it on the NLSS. I think this is one of those ping-pong bits where I mentioned it in Isaac. Because I mentioned it in Isaac, it was on my mind for the NLSS. I brought it up during the NLSS, and then because we talked about it during the NLSS, I'm going to talk about it during Isaac. But that's okay. In the end, we're just, you know, rearranged stardust floating through space anyway, and, you know, our conscience and conscious functions are basically just the result of electrical impulses coursing through an arrangement of matter, organized the best possible way to propagate our genes in a cruel universe where everything's out to steal our carbon. But if you ignore that, you gotta remember there are still good things in life, such as Adam Sandler films, the Shrek movies except for the first one, and Gotti, starring Jan Travolta. But what I was gonna say is fancy coffee drinks really took off in North America real quickly. I'm going to tell the exact same story I told in the NLSS, which is that in like 1996, we went to a gas station. I don't know about this one, Coach. This is a real good item. I definitely don't want to swallow that altered chino. But Incubus is like one of the best familiars we could have. I don't want to mess with it. We went to a gas station. My uncle from the east coast of Canada was there. I mean, he wasn't at the gas station. He was in the car with us. That would be a mighty coincidence. Anyway, and he went in and it was like, I'm going to get a coffee. Does anybody want anything? And I was like, I'm 6. So the answer there was no. And when he came back out, he had this weird coffee with like a white foam on top. And everyone went, boy, I thought you said you were getting a coffee. And he said, this is a coffee, Father. I ain't never seen a coffee like that. What kind of coffee is that? It's called a cappuccino. It's an Italian caffeinated hot beverage made by a barista. Contains steamed milk and as well as coffee. And we all laughed at him. Ha ha ha! Whatever happened to coffee that was as black as road tar? Sticks to your lungs. You know what I'm talking about. Hot sewage, we used to call it. You get a tin cup, fill it up with some dark caffeine and a teaspoon of molasses. Spend the day down at the old smeltery. Granddad didn't have a problem with it. Now all of a sudden,
I'll have 1 cappuccino, please. Can you steam my milk?
we laughed at him. We said, ha ha, this will never catch on. 2 years later, Granddad at the Starbucks. Yeah, I'll have a mocha frappuccino with 2 pumps of hazelnut, please. And I'll tell you, you haven't experienced loss until you've heard a man you respect ask for 2 pumps of hazelnut. I said, grandfather, you can't say that. The kids will meme on you. You'll be dabbed on relentlessly. By the way, I'm very afraid of where we're at right now. HP's not looking so hot. Please, I was just going to say blow up and be magic mush, but that's not going to happen. So, some of that situation actually did happen, believe it or not. You're going to have to run the numbers for yourself and figure out, you know. I mean, obviously, my grandfather does not sound like a, you know, Jeff Bridges from True Grit. Saved. But we all looked at him with an incredulity. You know, we said, I really would like that Spirit Heart, please. We said, you know, a cappuccino, what's wrong with a regular coffee? And he said what everybody has to say whenever they try a food that's slightly unusual and is seen as hoity-toity. He went, I don't know, I just like it. And we went, a likely story, my friend. What, you think you're better than me? Just because you drink a coffee with steamed milk in it? But then, like, you know, we're years later now. Man, I really should have just blown up that tinted rock. And everybody's familiar with it. I mean, you know, I go to Starbucks, and I don't think the coffee is particularly great, but I do still like it. And it's kind of like the McDonald's principle, right? It's like, it's consistent. Everybody, and by the way, if you ever find yourself being, you know, traveling and sharing your travels with people, you're going to be in the same boat one day. You know, I went to McDonald's once in Japan and was like, oh, weird. A shrimp burger. Tastes pretty good, though. You're in Japan and you're eating at a McDonald's? yeah, I just wanted, like, you know, it's not like I was intimidated by the Japanese food. It's just thought maybe it'd be nice to, you know, have something like sample what the fast food is like in this country I've never been to before. You could be going to Jiro Dreams of Sushi and having $400 plates that don't even fill you up every night. And you have the audacity in Japan, of all places, to go to a McDonald's. Same thing, but with coffee. You know, sometimes you could have gone to Yuki's coffee shop. It's in the foothills of Mount Fuji. It's a 45-minute hike, but the coffee is to die for. That's all right. I'll just have a Starbucks and then we'll get on the train. You know, we got to catch the Shinkansen a little later. You know, it's life. You know, you got to make compromises. Plus, I ate some weird stuff in Japan. Triangles, konnyaku, the devil's tongue jelly. I hate it. It's one of my least favorite foods I've ever consumed, as mentioned myriad occasions in the past. Thank you for the spirit heart. I appreciate it a great deal, and we'll never forget this golden gift. Now, you know, I even order a drink that requires some service at Starbucks most of the time. Because if you want a coffee, they just go like, bzz, there you go. If you know, they serve you right at the counter. If you want an iced coffee, you get pushed down to the area known as the bar. Yo. Where you have to wait for your drink to be done, which in this case requires somebody to take lukewarm coffee and put ice in it. And that's fine, I just prefer cold coffee. But even I'm getting service now. And I'll admit I've become not a coffee snob, but very particular to some extent about my coffee. Like, I just don't like hot coffee as much anymore. I will still have, like, you know, push comes to shove, you know, I have a biological and psychosomatic dependency on it in order to enjoy my day. But, you know, I'll worry about that later. So, you know, if I don't go into a nice place and go like, hey, can I get an iced Americano? You know, if it's not the kind of place that does that, I'll be like, oh, can I have a double espresso with a splash of water, please? Oh, this guy knows what he's talking about. Double espresso with a splash of water. That'll be $9.30. All right, hold the water. They really spread throughout the North America in a big way. I feel like that happens way faster now. I did this exact bit for sure earlier, but I still want to talk about it because once you get started, there's nothing to stop you. But, you know, back in the day, you know, if you're like, even in like the 1900s, for something to take off as like a cultural phenomenon, how did it happen? And I'm not saying like hypothetically or rhetorically. I'm like, dude, how did it happen? Like, somebody starts doing something, and then one guy with influence goes like, hey, that's pretty cool. Then he puts it on his radio show, and then 6 years later, people on the other coast are like, hey, did you hear about this, you hear about that new dance called the jitterbug? I've got an audio description of the dancing steps from the radio. You want to try it out later tonight? Now it's like, you know, one YouTube video. I be flossing. 2 days later, you bring it up. People are like, Dad, why are you bringing up this old meme? You know, the transfer of information is faster. But I am reminded, you know, I'm on the coast. Don't you forget it. Vancouver is a very multicultural city. In particular, there's a lot of Asian influence. Culinarily, that manifests itself in trends spreading throughout the city very quickly. Like, it's not like bubble tea or boba tea, whatever you would like to call it. We call it bubble tea here, but I understand different places have different names for it. It's not a new thing, but it's been extraordinarily popping off lately. Like, you know, you can't shake a stick without seeing a new bubble tea franchise open up. And I'm talking like 2 per block. It's wild. But sometimes I'm reminded, like, my parents, they're not old, but they're a little older. You know, they're in their 50s, and
Early 50s, I might add, at their behest.
I refuse. I need the HP. They live in what's basically the center of the country, and sometimes, you know, we'll have a conversation. Like, Kate will be like, you guys want to get some bubble tea? And they go, bubble tea, what's that? You know, I'm reminded that not every place in the country is full of people that are eager to spend, you know, $6.50 on a non-alcoholic beverage. Same thing like, you know, they know Japanese food. And I've got to say, as far as my hometown goes, my parents are downright cultured. And I mean that sincerely. There's things that, you know, they won't eat because they find them too weird. And that's okay. I think, you know, you paid into the Canadian taxpayer fund for 30 years. You got the right to say, no, I don't want to eat octopus or something like that, right? They've earned it. They've earned at least a few foods they say no to. Like, my mom will eat sushi, but, you know, she's mostly like a California roll type of sushi eater, and that's fine. My dad will not eat sushi at all and is like, well, why am I paying a restaurant to serve me raw food? And you're like, okay. I can't really argue with that, I suppose. I didn't realize that, you know, when you go to a restaurant, you take an audit of the amount of resources required to produce the food before you decide what to order. Like, it's not really a... I mean, maybe I have a different way of looking at the restaurant experience. I don't really see it as, like, I look at the menu as an escape room where I try to find the dish that costs the restaurant the most and yet costs the least for me. But, you know, there's still, like, you know, like, they'll go out and they'll be like, my dad will eat real ramen and is like, it's really good. And he calls it ramen. And I say, that's why everybody loves it. And, you know, my mom will eat, she'll eat some, I don't want to say out there Japanese foods, but, you know, she knows more than just sushi. You know, she'll be like, you know, that udon looks really good. Or like, ooh, that tempura is really nice. But we did go to like a little bit more, and I'd never been there before. But the place we wanted to go was fully booked. And it was a little bit of a weirder, and by weirder, it's funny, but I mean more traditional Japanese restaurant. And it started the meal with like 6 side dishes, and I gotta tell you, I'll eat some strange stuff, and even some of these were a little bit out there for yours truly. Like, first dish that came out was called taco wasabi. I know you're like, ooh, that sounds nice, like some kind of spicy taco. Nah, it's octopus juice with wasabi. I like octopus. I like wasabi. I did not like taco wasabi, but I ate half of the appetizer myself. Not just because I was feeling gluttonous, but because nobody else at the table touched it. Everybody else took one look at it and was like, I'll let you try it first. And then I tried it, and they were like, is it good? And I went, no. And then nobody else ate it. I felt bad, so I ate like a little bit more. Okay, so there's one of the dishes, all right? I didn't want the restaurant to feel bad that maybe, because here's the thing, it's not that the dish was bad, it's just like I didn't know what I was eating, so it felt a little unusual. And then they'd be like, was the food okay? And I'd be like, hey, actually that thing that we ordered, it wasn't, I didn't like it. And they'd be like, oh, was it not good? And I'd be like, well, I can't really, I'm not an authority on that. What I would rather do is just suffer quietly and then pay for the privilege later. It's not the restaurant's fault that I'm an idiot. Next appetizer, big bowl of pickled garlic. That's one of the ones I liked, okay? I like pickled garlic. I'll eat a little raw garlic, given the circumstances. You know, when the mood is right, you gotta run all night. Decidedly not good enough. Next, couple of dishes. One was like cucumbers marinated in soy sauce. One was cucumbers with a little bit of like a spicy sashimi on top of it, like a kind of like a chili powder, like a Japanese chili powder. I liked both of those. I'm trying to remember what the next weirdness was, and I'm doing a bad job of it. Well, all I know is, and I know I'd recently called this more traditional, but Kate got something called sukiyaki, which is like a hot pot. In the sukiyaki, they put like cotton candy, and I know you're like, he must be mistaken. It was probably like beef floss. Beef floss? No, it was not beef floss, because I ate a little bit. Because she went, can you check this and see if it's cotton candy? And I went, sure. And in my head, I was like, that's beef floss, dude. I don't even know what beef floss is, but I've seen it at TNT supermarkets, aka the Asian grocery stores from time to time. You know, you walk down the aisle and you're like, okay, shrimp crackers. Crackers in the shape of a cuttlefish. Oh, beef floss. And you always like, what the heck is beef floss? And I'm like, well, how do you think the cow keeps their breath so clean? Anyway. They were not having that. They didn't have a great time at that meal, and that's on me. Should have chosen a slightly more appropriate place for that situation. But at the same time, they got to try something they can't try in their hometown. And I'm sure they went back and they probably had, like, you know, some champagne. That's how it's pronounced, right? Like the sparkling wine from France. And some tempura and a California roll. And they were like, this is way better. You know what? I've been there. There's some fancy foods I just don't care for as well. Like, I'll try them. And I rail on this. Let me get my sentiment out there before I... you know, go into the more flavorful part of the discussion. But if you are a picky eater and you don't have a legitimate medical reason for it, I'm not saying like I have a suspicion that I have some kind of chemical on my tongue that makes all vegetables taste bad, but all breaded meats taste good. It's funny how everybody has like the same condition. It always, you know, I think I've got that genetic disorder that means I only enjoy the taste of chicken fingers. It's never, or I shouldn't say never, but it's very rarely that there's like a... Yeah, I'm a real picky eater. Like, the only thing I really like to eat is, like, vegetables. I don't know what it is, but, like... I mean, I guess it does happen. I shouldn't act like it's unprecedented, but I do think it's rarer. But anyway, just don't take this the wrong way. I'm saying this out of the goodness of my heart. Try to get over it. That's why, like, I love being the guy. If other people are anxious about trying a food, I will absolutely try it. I've eaten all sorts of gross stuff, and much of the time, it has confirmed my suspicion that this is not a food that I want to eat. It's not. I'm not that guy. You can rely on me.
Hello.
Oh my lord.
What's the plan today?
I will finish this video and then we will get dinner.
What kind of dinner will you be getting?
I don't know. Do you have any ideas?
No, that's why I came to ask.
I was thinking I would also get some groceries and we could get dinner ingredients there.
Okay.
But I don't have a specific dinner menu right now.
Do you want me to come with you to grocery shop?
You are always welcome, but you don't have to come.
Okay.
You could also make a list and check it twice and then find out if you're naughty or nice.
Okay. I guess I can stream a bit more then.
Yeah, by all means. Yo, she opened the door and it's so much cooler in here now. It's very nice. Well, because I don't want to bleed into your stream audio. She said she'll close her door. I never considered that solution before. Anyway, you know, you can rely on me to be that taster for you. I'm not going to taste something that tastes like garbage and be like, you know, oh, it's really good. And then when you eat it, you know, and you're like, it's not good at all. It sucks. I'll be like, yeah, I know. I just wanted to prank you. I'll give you, at least, you know, if I respect you, I'll give you my honest appraisal. But I don't mind, you know, going through the experience of something being mildly unappetizing. I've never been one of those guys that, like, you know, I find a hair in my food, and then I'm like, oh, I lost my appetite. My appetite is unlosable. Even when I'm full, I still have an appetite. The only time, I can't relate to people who lose their appetite. And I don't say that to be rude to them. But the only time I lose my appetite is when I just forget to eat. Like, I've been very busy, and I'm like, oh, I didn't eat anything today. And then I'm like, oh, no wonder I'm hungry. That answers that question. I never really go through a period where I'm like, I don't want to eat. Sometimes it's just like, accidentally I have it. And then when I'm in the presence of food again, I'm like, I want you to give me your energy for metabolic processes. But anyway, I don't mind being that guy. I've eaten, you know, all sorts of fish eggs, all sorts of salted, fermented fish meats, fish heads, you know, shrimp heads, shrimp tails. I don't care. If the restaurant tells me, like, hey, you should eat it like this, they serve it to me presented in a way that it looks edible, I will eat it and be like, you don't need to try that one. I think it's one of my best traits, you know. Sometimes, like we were at brunch. I had a smoked sablefish salad at the restaurant that told me to take off my hat, and it was delicious, but it was cold, It was a little bitter. It was a little salty, and it was very fishy. I love all of the things that I just said. But Kate was like, hey, how's your salad? And I said, it's good. And then she said, would I like it? And I said, absolutely not. And she said, okay. She didn't want to try it at that point. You know why? We built up a trust and rapport on a culinary level. It's the same. I mean, I'm a little bit more rakish, I suppose. If she's like, you wouldn't like this at all, I'd be like, yeah, well, check this out. Then I eat it and be like, ugh. Well, you know, I know what she likes in a flavor profile. She knows what I like. Basically, for me, you cannot oversalt a food. I have very, very rarely, like 1 in 1,000 times, been to a restaurant and been like, this dish is too salty. Sometimes we'll order like a shared dish, and she's like, it's pretty salty. And I'm like, yeah, I know, it rules. What do you mean I have 5 years to live, doctor? Anyway, I never use table salt, though. That always, it's one of those things that's just like, you know, why tempt fate? And I know this is an opinion for which I get lambasted a little bit sometimes, but, you know, I've rarely, sometimes I will add pepper to my food, but for the most part, and I'm talking about home-cooked meals in addition to restaurant food, but, like, sometimes I'll add a little pepper to the meal, but, you know, when you get, like, a pasta dish or something like that at a restaurant, and then they come around with the comically oversized pepper grinder and go, would you like some fresh pepper for your meal? I always say no, because my opinion is like, you know, if your chef in the back is worth half a darn, and the meal tasted consistently better with, you know, fresh pepper on top, he would have already put it into the dish, and maybe he did. So I trust their judgment. But, by the way, if you like having fresh cracked pepper on your dish, don't let me stop you. Moreover, it's just kind of part of the experience, right? Is the idea that, you know, after you buy something, the server comes over and goes... You get the idea. Sorry, I had a blinking alert in the other window. If you like it, by all means, you know? It's like going to a, you know, a Japanese Benihana sort of establishment, right? You know, it's not like the onion volcano makes the onions taste better. But there's a reason you're paying, you know, $35 for a steak you could probably get at Red Robin for like 19. You know, you're paying for the expertise and the experience a little bit, and there's nothing wrong with that either. But I feel like it's one of those things where people are like, if you salted your food at the table, it would taste way better, and I would be like, yeah. But having not ever really salted my food at the table, I don't know how much better it would taste. And as a result, I'm not saying I'm going to live forever, but I might even have gotten, like, you know, an extra 6 months out of life from avoiding the higher risk of hypertension or something like that. I already got borderline high blood pressure to begin with. So I'm trying to, you know, take care of that. I don't know. You can't shame a man for having high blood pressure. You know, it's not. I mean, maybe you can. I don't know the rules. Okay, we're doing okay on this run. I hate having the curse. We do have the damage aura right off the bat, though. All those items are worth taking, in my opinion. Maybe we could have sucked up Gemini, but I'm in the middle of discourse right now. Anyway, so we've hit a lot of well-trodden ground. I'm just saying, like, sometimes I'm reminded of how, you know, food trends, they hit different parts of the country, different parts of the world at different times, you know? Like, there was a little while where, like, paella was popping off. You know, I talked to my parents, and I'm like, oh, you guys don't have a good paella restaurant there? Why the heck would they have a good paella restaurant there? They live in a town with, like, 100,000 people. Probably, like, less than 200 of which have any sort of, like, you know, connection to Spain whatsoever. You know, it takes a while for things to get there. Meanwhile, people in Spain are like, oh, you guys are just getting paella? Yeah, it's been like our national dish for 400 years. Fair enough, you know? I'm not trying to paella-splain you. The same thing, I will say, you know, Vancouver suffers a little bit. Like, we got a lot of West Coast influence, we got a lot of Asian influence. We don't have as much European influence culinarily. Like, You know, if you're from like Europe, you're gonna laugh at this, but if I go out and there's like a sausage on a menu, or this is like a miracle. If there's like Wiener Schnitzel on the menu, I'm like, oh my god, what an exotic restaurant. They have a fried meat cutlet on the menu. It's called Wiener Schnitzel. Whereas I'm sure, like, if you live in Germany, you're like, I could go... That's not really a good German accent. Yeah, I could go to any schnitzel shop and... Look, you probably make fun of my Canadian accent behind closed doors.
I was out at the grocery store yesterday, and somebody bumped into me and they didn't say sorry.
I hear ya. You don't think I'm listening. At the end of every day, I say, oh, time for bed. What am I gonna do? I boot up the VODs of every other streamer on Twitch and I watch them just to hear if they talk guff about me. And you'd be surprised how many of them do. Just jealousy, I suppose. Anyway, jealous of my cool accent. my sweet shirt. I also feel like we're babies whenever we like have cause and occasion to go to like San Francisco or LA, God forbid. Whenever we're in San Francisco, you know, we have friends who are locals there, and they're like, "Oh, you haven't heard of Poke-Ritos?" I'm like, dude, just frig off, okay? You don't understand. You're in the crucible here. You're in the crucible of weird and also sometimes ill-advised but usually delicious and over-expensive food creations. No, I haven't heard of a Poke-Rito. Yeah, I know now there's one open on Seymour Street. Anyway, hey, thanks for watching. I hope you guys have enjoyed the episode. If you did, click the like button. Helps it a great deal. Of course, subscribe if you want to see more in the future. For now, thanks for watching, and I will see you next time. See ya!